So, like I said, tonight we're going to be talking about one of the modules. The module, we've broken it down, body, mind, soul, social aspects. This is going to be related to the transforming your mind. And one of the topics is biggest dilemma of humanity. So what is that? What is the secret to happiness, and what are we as human beings struggling with, and why are we falling into paths in our lives sometimes that we don't necessarily desire? We're being dragged sometimes either internally by our own thoughts or by other people. Let's do this, let's do that, or make choices that we don't necessarily want.
How?
Sorry? Greedy? Okay. Good. But I would like to challenge you to break it down and ask another level. Each question that you ask, then ask yourself, why is that? Why are we greedy? When you have an answer, why? Just if you break it deeper and deeper, deeper, you're going to open more and more doors, and you're going to have a better understanding of who we are. And that's exactly where we're trying to get to.
But we'll never experience happiness if we don't experience despair.
I agree with you. Yes. But we'll be talking about what really happiness is. And at some point, I'm going to ask your input on that. Okay? So, the taglines: fulfill and live your ultimate potentials. The HEAT movement. We talked about this. We're just going to go right ahead. Before I move on, this is a practice that we've started and been asked by several people to do a 1-minute meditation. I'm going to ask all of us to share this experience. So please relax just to prepare for this setting. So what I want you to do is just focus. It's a moment of appreciation of ourselves, okay? Just think about where we are. Like I said, start zooming out. We're in North Vancouver. So close your eyes and imagine you are an astronaut and taking off from the ground. And observe where you are. Observe yourself. Actually, I'm going to put on my timer. Just go farther and farther into space. You can see Canada. Now you can see the earth. Now your only connection is the oxygen that you breathe. So just focus on your breathing. With every breath, you're feeding 50 trillion cells in your body. Think about that. Your cells are serving you 24/7. Now it's your time to appreciate and thank you. Okay, let's come back to Earth. A very simple hayabi. There are chairs here. No, it's okay. Welcome. Please make sure you sign in our sign-in sheet if you haven't. So this is a very simple practice. I practice that every day, and I would like to practice it twice a day when I go to sleep as well, but oftentimes I forget. For those of you who do some sort of meditation, there are so many different types of meditation. This is a very practical, simple, easy to do, just to distract your thoughts and just really relax you. Did anyone notice any change in your state even within 1 minute? Yeah. If you really get into it, oftentimes it is relaxing, and there are reasons for that, which we will discuss later on. But anyways, So if you have the, I don't think we have enough copies, but if you have the copy of that chart, for those of you who are new, this is the human potentials chart for your mind. I want you to score yourself where you are today. Okay, some people have already done that. And where you want to be, let's say next year, or within whatever time frame that you may decide. So if you're healthy, you would be at +1. Okay? If you have some sort of mental illness, let's say depression or anxiety, general anxiety disorder, you'll be at -1. So your goal is to be to the next level. If you were -1, you want to go to 0 or +1. If you're +1, your goal would be to +2. I want you to start thinking, and if you have a piece of paper, maybe write down some ideas of where you want to be, let's say in what time frame, some goal settings, and how you're going to do that. So let's spend a couple minutes just thinking about that and or writing it down. How are you going to improve your mental condition? Okay? Does anyone want to share? Benas?
I think for my personal lifestyle, I think I have to be more organized, and forgiveness, that's what I have to add.
Those are the areas that you need to work on. A simple tool, if you use this tool on the website, the tools available, you can actually write down what I would suggest to start off with to have your vision first. Where's your destination? If you're +1 right now, if you're doing well, you want to be at +2. And then set a time frame, a realistic time frame. So let's say within the next year, I want to be at +2. What does +2 mean to you? That means above average. This could be 5 years, it could be 6 months, it varies, right? It's your choice. And then what is the specific strategy? So once you have that, then you break it down, right? So that's great. You have identified 2 areas you need to focus or you want to focus on, which is great. But those will be the next steps. Because if you have that direction, that this is what it means, and in the next 5 years or 1 year, I'm going to be doing this. Okay, how are you going to do that? Then you break it down even further. Oh, so these are the 3 steps that I'm going to take. I'm going to focus on forgiveness, and I'm going to focus on this, I'm going to focus on that. And for example, how are you going to focus on forgiveness? You know, you might want to, let's say, read a book about forgiveness, right? Educate, self-education. So it becomes more clear as if, but the idea is you start from the overview, and then you break it down, okay? So this tool, simple tools, allows you to it's like a compass in your life. It gives you a direction, it gives you a time frame, and it gives you strategies. I mean, you will give yourself strategies to do that. So, but you need to break it down. Always start from the bigger picture and then break it down, break it down, break it down, and you will get there. So for example, again, we're diverting a little bit, but one of the discussions on the how to achieve your goal, doesn't matter what goal it is in your life. You set a goal. For example, you want to climb Mount Everest. You set a goal. I want to go to Mars. Doesn't matter how crazy it is. What you need to do is you come up with the idea, with the goal, and then you break it down into mini goals. In order to climb Mount Everest, you need to figure out what you need to do, how many phases there are in between, how many mini goals there are to get you to Mount Everest. If there are 5 mini goals, right, you need to figure it out, so you do research. If I want to go to Mars, what do I need to do? A, B, C, D, right? Once you've clarified that, then you just focus on A. I just want to go to the next phase. I'll get there. When I get there, PDR, plan, do, review. You plan how to get to A, you do it, then you review it. What went wrong, what worked, what didn't wrong. You take a break, then you focus on the next mini goal, B, and the next goal, C, D, E, F. Ultimately, you will reach your goal. Doesn't matter how big that goal is. So that's one of this, realistic and practical strategies that we'll be talking about, for example. So similarly, you want to set your goal and then break it down again. Okay? All right, so tonight we're going to be talking about self-awareness, and I would like to share this interesting experiment. A very important concept to understand is the difference between truth and reality. So this, if we want to understand one of the biggest dilemmas that we human beings are challenged with, we need to understand the difference between truth and reality, and this will clarify many of misconceptions that we're dealing with. So I actually didn't find appropriate glasses, but imagine we have 4 different colored glasses, and we have 4 volunteers. We have a blue glasses, red, green, and yellow. I'll use anything here, I'll use the cup example. So we put in a cup and ask you, what color is the cup? What do you think is going to happen?
Risking the perception of the color will change because of the filters that are processed.
Exactly. So what color, I'll ask the question again. What color is this cup?
Reality is red.
What color is this cup?
Red.
Red. Does everyone agree?
The inside is
Red
white.
and white.
I see burgundy. Actually, I see orange. Wait. No, now it's burgundy. Oh, now it's red. Now it's orange.
Well, depends how you want to see it.
You follow me? So there's a difference between what color is the cup and what color do you see the cup. So what color is the cup is what color is it is. It's the truth. There's only one truth. It's the color that it is. This side of your lens, this side of your glasses. The truth is objective. It's the fact about anything. Okay? What sometimes we don't realize is that we mix truth and reality. Now, if I ask you, what color do you see the cup, that would be your reality. You may see it orange. It depends on your glasses. One sees it yellow, one sees it blue, one sees it orange. And even, if I look at different light perspectives, I see it differently. Like literally, if you look at it from here, it's actually orange now. Now it's red. You follow me? So the context changes. That is my reality. For everything in our life, there's one truth and there is multiple realities. Just the fact that, when I personally came to this realization, that was a big milestone in my own life. And I started to understand. So if I had a discussion, a debate, a difference of opinion with someone else about something, I would always remind myself, this is my perspective, this is my reality, which may be different than somebody else's perspective. Now, what color is that cup? Let's say if I put a white cup and you, what color is the cup if it's a white cup? White. Again, it's a label. What does white mean to you? So your whites may be different than mine. The fact of the matter, if we really, really want to get as close as possible to the fact, to the truth, it's explained scientifically. We cannot put, as soon as you put your label on it, white, again, it's a mental filter. Your white is different than my white. Is it very white? Is it a little white? So the truth is, it's a color that's defined by specific physical characteristics with a very unique wavelength and a very unique frequency of, let's say, 0.9738 meters or nanometers or whatever, and this specific frequency. That is what the truth is, that no one can disagree anywhere in the world. The truth about the chemical structure of water is H2O. But our reality about water could be very different. So no one can argue in the world what the truth is. The truth today, we know that the world is round. It was finalized and worldwide approved in 1522 by a Portuguese sailor. But before that, 100 years before that, there was different perspectives and opinions. Some people thought that we're living on a big turtle. Many people thought that the earth is flat because that's our perspective. We see everything flat. So just remember that for everything there's a difference in truth and reality. And you'll see why I'm explaining this later on. The dots will be connected. Okay? All right, now let's talk about happiness. So, just a few hands. What does happiness mean to you in one word? Just throw out. Yeah?
Health,
Health.
living in the moment.
Living in the moment.
Having time with the kids.
Kids. Family.
Peaceful mind.
Peaceful mind. Anybody? Money? Money?
Work-life balance.
No?
Understanding that there's no ultimate happiness.
Understand there's no outcome in happiness.
No ultimate happiness.
There's no ultimate happiness.
No ceiling.
That's relative. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Contentment.
Contentment. Great. Thank you. So, different realities, right? But what's the truth about happiness? Well, everybody ultimately wants to be, wants to achieve the ultimate happiness, right? And there's different perspectives when you ask, actually they've done surveys, and there are different understandings and interpretations of happiness. Some people, there's a whole wide range. The left side is more materialistic, the right side is more non-materialistic. Some people say money is happiness. Well, that's fine. Luxuries, fame, job security, education, family, loved one, contentment, different understandings of happiness. Remember, these are all our realities, and they're all right. Okay? So, let's clarify some of the misunderstandings about happiness, because this will clarify one of our biggest dilemmas. The biggest dilemma of humanity, and some of these are my opinion, and some of them are facts, which I can mention. But I believe one of the biggest dilemmas of humanity is the secret to happiness. The sources of ultimate and long-term happiness, and I'll clarify that in the next slide, are within. The sources of happiness are internal, not external. But when you think about it, most people are seeking happiness outside of them. I need a loved one to make me happy. I need money to make me happy. I need education to make me happy. I need to be, an Olympic winner to be happy. Everybody has a different perspective in their mind, and they set goals to set them. In other words, for most people, we say, in order for me to be happy, I need to go from point A, where I am, to point B, where it's going to make me happy. And this is done subconsciously. In the previous discussion, we clarified a little bit more the subconscious and the conscious thinking, and we're going to be talking about those. But the subconscious part of your mind, which is active probably 95% of the time, it controls us, is the part that we're not exactly aware, but we just see the outputs of those thinking patterns. Okay? But if you really search within yourself, and it's within your thoughts, feelings, and actions, you can find the sources of true happiness. All right, let's clarify some of the definitions of happiness. So, for simple clarification, let's separate short-term from long-term happiness. I believe most people confuse these two, and that's the source of the problem. So, what we are ultimately seeking is ultimate internal peace, and inner happiness. Let's call that contentment on the right column, scenario B. Whereas what we are seeking is the sources for short-term happiness. So there's a difference between short-term and long-term happiness. So what are some of these differences? Well, scenario A is short-term. Scenario B is long-term. The sources of short-term happiness are usually external. If you win a lottery, are you going to be happy? Well, longer term. Okay, there you go. I agree with you. You know, hey, if you graduate from school, are you going to be happy? Of course. If you get married, are you going to be happy? Of course. You know, well, maybe. Short term, long term. Exactly. You see the perspectives. You see this. It changes. Starts changing in the context, and that's where our realities are constantly changing. But the point is, every external source brings you short-term happiness, whereas the sources of long-term happiness are inside you. You do not need anything in order to be content. And we're defining this by long-term happiness, contentment, and inner joy. Nature, episodic, so short-term happiness is episodic, whereas long-term is consistent. So look at some of these Buddhist monks. They do nothing all day long. They're happy. They do apparently nothing. Exactly. But it's all internally. They're doing a lot. Yeah. So exactly. Thank you for clarifying. I rephrase. It's still a lot of work, and in fact, but they're apparently doing nothing from our perspective, you know, from the external world, what we're used to, the way we're conditioned. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about the journey. Here's the interesting part. In scenario A, the journey is an unhappy journey, whereas in scenario B, it's a happy journey. And that explains one of the reasons that most people are unhappy during their lives. There's a few more reasons written in, I think it's chapter 9 or 10, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll explain. I have a slide on that as well. The triggers for short-term happiness are often material. So if you win a lottery, you're going to be happy. You know, if you buy a Ferrari, you're going to be happy for some time. But triggers for contentment and long-term happiness are non-material often. Misconception. True inner joy is your long-term happiness. Whereas I've just used this terminology for short-term happiness is a pseudo-happiness. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with that. But just as long as we understand that, that's short-term. Okay, so this is the journey. Scenario A. In order for me to be happy, I need to do X. I need to graduate from medical school. I set a goal in my mind, right? Climb Mount Everest. That means that's point Y. Today I'm at point X. I'm not happy today. So what my subconscious mind is telling me that you're not happy today. In order for you to be happy, you need to find your loved one. You need to have $1 million in your account in order to be happy. You need to have a big house, right? So I start moving in that direction to achieve my goal. But the journey is an unhappy because the mind is constantly telling me that today you're not happy. Wait until you get to point X, Y, then you'll be happy. Misunderstanding. Whereas in scenario B, I am happy already. I will be happier if I find my loved one. If I graduate from medical school. If I win a lottery. If, right? But this is the subconscious mind talking to us that we're often not aware. But look at the journey. In scenario A, the journey is an unhappy journey, which is most of the time. So what happens? Scenario A, I'm unhappy. I graduate from medical school. I become happy for a few years. Then life goes on. Then I become unhappy again. Then I win a lottery. I'm happy again for a few years. Then I'm unhappy again. Then I find my loved one. Then I'm happy again. You see these episodes? Whereas scenario B, I'm constantly happy. I'm already at a higher happiness level. And if I find my loved one, I'm not going to get too excited. I'll get excited, but I'm going to be happier. If I buy my Ferrari, I'm going to get happier. the fluctuations are less, more stable, we are often not aware of these things in us. But think about the motives for many of our behaviors. What are people pursuing in their lives? How are we setting goals? How are we following? And what are we following? What are we looking for in life? What does life mean to us? So this is another transformational points that, when I personally came to realize it, wow, it's like, okay. But, to understand it is the first step. But really to get to the point of accomplishing it and feeling that inner happiness is something else. It's simple, but it's not easy. You have to work on it now to understand and constantly get there. And I'll share some tips to you how you can achieve that inner happiness. Okay, here comes the big question. I've been asked this question so many times. So if I'm already happy, okay, I want to follow scenario B, inner happiness. I'm already happy. If I'm already happy though, why bother set goals to make me happier? What about achievements? Why bother? Life is going to, I'm constantly, why not all of us live like monks? What would the world look like, right? What about personal growth? What are some thoughts for that? Any suggestions, any thoughts?
Who says monks are happy?
That's a good question.
That's a good question. I don't know. They say they're happy, but it's, look, unless you actually put on their glasses, it's hard to experience what they're feeling.
And nothing is forever.
Nothing is forever, but we're talking about relativity. You brought up a good point. It's, how much of these fluctuate, we're still going to have fluctuations in scenario B. There's no perfect, constant happiness that every day is the same. Otherwise, it would be dead, right? That's just normal life. I mean, things happen. We're all going to have, even the highest level of monk is going to have their bad days and good days, of course. But the fluctuations are going to be much less. If they win a lottery, they're not going to get as excited as probably we would, Any thoughts on this point? So what is the motive then? If we think that way, why should we bother to follow, make so much adventures in the world? Why should I go to school and graduate from medical school? And, why should I look for my loved one? Whatever, I'm already happy. I don't need a loved one.
Because you already said it in the beginning, it makes you happier.
Yeah, but it's a little happier. So what?
But if you recognize you have that potential, and so to try to get happier and realize your potential, you'll be happy. If you don't have any potential, you're realizing you have not potential, then yeah, you might just well stay that.
So one of the purposes could be just for personal growth, just achieving a higher level of happiness. Ahmed, where you can say something?
Solid say to maximize your potential.
Yeah. So that would be definitely one motive and reason for us to continue, even if we think like scenario B. But here's the other thing, the vision, and which really is aligned with what you're saying. If we achieve a higher level and start seeing things differently, if you have grown instead of 70%, 80% of your potential, what happens is as our vision changes, our perspective changes, our lens changes, right? So I'll use the example of a father and a son playing soccer. Think about how happy they are while playing soccer, right? While the level of happiness, it's the vision and the quality of happiness is different. The perspective is different. So while the soccer's motive for playing and what makes them happy is winning, the father's joy and happiness is different. It's not necessarily, they may not care whether they win or lose as long as it's just spending time with the son. Think about how we felt when we were 6 years old and we were playing with our toys. Do we have the same feeling if we play with the same toys? No, the meaning of life changes. The meaning of happiness changes. So basically, the reason to do or achieve anything is a much more profound than scenario. So you're seeing everything from a higher perspective, which is aligned with what you say, because now you have achieved the higher levels of your potential. Basically, you've grown up. You know, you've grown higher in your personal growth journey. So you're starting to see things differently. And compared to adults, but one is a mature adult, and compared to the other one who is immature and still childish and really hasn't grown up. They're the same age, but think about their perspectives. How do they feel? Do you sometimes see some foolish people around you who act like children and very immaturely? How do we feel about them? Say, like, you know, like...
They could be very happy, though.
They could be very happy, yes. Short-term happiness, right? But in long term, if you have achieved that level of personal growth, you're constantly going to see everything differently. Your mental lens will change. Your glasses will change. The color of the cup will be different. Now, this is one of the challenges that oftentimes, this relates back to the truth versus reality. Oftentimes, what we try to do when we're faced with life challenges, we try to change the situation. We try to change we try to change the cup. But the cup is external. What we need to change is our vision, our reality, not the truth. Our attitude, our vision towards what's happening. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on. There's a formula, S plus R equals O. Many people think it's that situations that lead to outcome, S leads to O. But in fact, it's a combination of the situation and your reaction, how you react to the situation, that determines an outcome. And just to give you a simple example, you know, two people may be tragically raped in their childhood, but you see one person turns out to be someone like Oprah, another person turns out to be devastated and a homeless person for the rest of their life. And I'm just using extreme examples sometimes just to make the point. But it's really not the situation. There are so many people who have experienced war, but you see so many different outcomes. So many people have experienced poverty. So many people have experienced dysfunctional families. But look at the outcome. Why is it so diverse? It's not necessarily the situation alone that determines the outcome. Of course it affects the outcome. But it's not alone. There's another factor that we need to understand, and that's our reaction to the situation. That's our reality. So the truth plus the reality, combine it together, that's going to determine the outcome. And that's our opportunity to make a change in our lives. Okay, that was more related to the truth and reality. But it relates to understanding the happiness and just pursuing things differently. So once you start understanding the difference between the two types of happiness, you've got to ask yourself, and there's no right or wrong answer, what is it that you're really looking after? What are you looking for? What are you pursuing in life, ultimately? If this was the last day of your life, and you look back, how would you have liked your life to look like? Is there anything that you regret doing? Is there anything that you regret not doing? If you move forward with that kind of vision, then you're more likely to be on your right path. Not the right path, but your right path. Right? So just that, starting to look at everything in life differently, about ourselves, about our family, about our situation, about our job. How many of you know very rich people who are extremely unhappy? Yeah, there's lots of them. So if money was the solution to happiness, then that wouldn't make sense, right?
Makes life easier.
Yes, it solves a lot of problems. Many, many problems, of course. but it does not bring you ultimate happiness. It's one vehicle, and any of those vehicles that I showed you could lead you. But you need to define these. So convey, my point is that oftentimes we're driven by our subconscious mind to define these meanings for us. And our subconscious mind has been conditioned since childhood, since day one of our, in fact, before birth, when we're in the womb. Okay, so there are many factors that affect how we turn out to be later on in adult, even in your prenatal stages. And that's been proven by science. We know that through the placenta, through mother's blood, you know, what the chemicals that can be passed on and how they can affect whether you can have an anxious child. So we have infants that have anxiety and show signs of anxiety. Where did that come from? Genes? That's a whole other discussion. No, there's more and more science that's showing that environmental factors are much more powerful than what we thought in determining our outcomes. So my point is, we are being driven by our subconscious mind to define who we are. They define what we want. They define the direction that we're going in life. What am I going to be looking for? How do I make my decision? What is my target goal for next year? Is it going to be to pursue my education? Is it going to be to buy a new house? Is it going to be to get married? What is it going to be? And how are those factors, how are those decisions made? I just want to bring you to realization of where those coming from your subconscious mind, based on many other layers of cognitions and thinkings, which we'll talk more and more. So the opportunity here is now, sometimes we may be happy and continue what we're doing, but if we want to change path, how are we going to do that? We need to become aware of it, and now consciously we want to change our subconscious thinking. We had a lot of in-depth discussion last time. We will continue to have some further discussions in detail about that in future topics. So what is the secret to long-term happiness or true inner joy, contentment, let's call it? So how do we get there? So few tips. Like I said, the true sources of inner happiness are inside you, are inside your mind. Remember, happiness is a feeling. So for some of you that are new, there is I'll try to put the slide next time, and my apologies, I don't have that slide. There is a TFA triangle, the thoughts, feelings, actions triangle. It's a very core basis of modern psychology. It's being practiced all across the world. It's already well accepted. How our thoughts, feelings, and actions affect each other. So positive thoughts lead to positive feelings and positive actions, and vice versa. Okay? So remember, happiness is a feeling. You feel happy or unhappy, right? So one of the strategies to change that feeling, if you feel unhappy and want to change that, which is often our primary motive, is the reason we do anything. The reason you're sitting here is, whatever it is, it's to ultimately either achieve a happy state or obtain pleasure or avoid a pain. Either you're looking for an answer that's bothering you, you have a question in your mind that's bothering you, so you're looking for an answer, or it's for pleasure. There's a reason you're here and you're not somewhere else, right? There's a reason you go to the restaurant. There's a reason that we do everything in life. And the ultimate reason is that relates to that F part in the triangle. The primary motive for whatever we do in life is two reasons: either to obtain pleasure or to avoid pain, or both. If you go to a restaurant, how do you choose whether you want to go to McDonald's or Cactus Club? If you're hungry only and you don't care about the type of food, you'll say, let's get to the first food stop and I don't care what it is, right? Because I'm hungry. I just want to put something here because you're avoiding the pain of hunger. Does that make sense? Or if you're not that hungry, you may choose to go to Cactus Club. Why? Because I'm going with my friends, because I want to obtain the pleasure of socializing with my friends. Right? So subconsciously, if you challenge yourself and ask at a deeper and deeper and deeper level, ultimately, I've been challenging this for the last 15 years of my life, and always it boils down to two things. Anything that you do in life, at individual, social, and global levels, it's either to obtain pleasure or to avoid pain or both.